Thank you for joining us for today's Getting Together Tuesdays presentation, A New Way to Work, brought to you by Trinity's Center for Experiential Learning and Career Success and Parent Giving and Engagement Programs. I'm Katie Ramirez, the Director of Career Services, and I'm honored to introduce Mike Owens, the Vice President of Logistics Procurement in the Global Operations team at Dell and a class of 2019 Trinity parent. He'll be joined today by 6 additional Dell team members who are also Trinity alumni. We're grateful to Mr. Owens for reaching out and to the Dell team for finding time to provide insight and guidance into remote work and how students can set themselves up for success. We're excited to hear what Mr. Owens has to share, and at that, I'll turn it over to him and his team to talk a bit more about their roles as well as jumping into the presentation. Thank you.
Hi, Katie. Thank you for inviting us all here, and we're happy to join the call today. As Katie mentioned, my name is Mike Owens. I'm the Vice President of Logistics Procurement here at Dell. I've been here at Dell a little over 20 years in a variety of different roles, and for the past probably 8 to 10 years have been learning to work remote because Dell really embraced the remote culture probably about 10 years ago when we started moving all of our phones from landlines into voice over IP and using a lot more technology to connect on a global scale. Today, I've got a couple of recent Trinity grads here with me that we're going to share how we're dealing with the COVID-19 and continuing to work while we can't be in the office. And we've got from a Dell scale over 100,000 people right now that are working remote, and 7 of us are here today. So we've got Camila, Shivali, Lily, Arusa, Paulina, and Starjul that will be joining us. You can see that they're all recent grads from the last couple of years and have all been very successful so far in their early Dell careers. If we go to the next slide, we'll share a little bit of background on the lessons that we've learned over the last couple of years and that we're still learning right now about how to work remote at Dell. If we click the first button here, this got a couple of builds here. The first thing that I would say is, when you're working remote, try to make that virtual environment as real as you can. And today's one example of it. We're using video as an example, and so we're connecting in a face-to-face mode that you might not get if you just pick up the phone or you're texting somebody or emailing people. So try to make virtual as real as you can. The other thing with it is, pretend that you're going into the office. Get your remote office set up in a way that you feel comfortable. Dress for success. Dress up like you're going to the office. You all hear about the jokes about people not wearing pants into their meetings and stuff. Dress like you're actually going into the office and get that mindset that this isn't just a virtual engagement, but it's a real engagement. As you're talking to folks, try to maintain eye contact, especially if you're using video. And then the final thing is, there's a lot of stuff that can be going around you when you're in a remote office. Try to stay focused and eliminate distractions. And one of the things that I do sometimes, I've got some glass doors. I'll hang a sheet just up on the side to keep any distractions from coming when the dogs start barking at the UPS guy or something like that. So the key here though is really trying to engage as much as you would in a normal type of environment. Next, I think we've got Camila that's going to talk a little bit about the second item.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. And so if we click next, yeah. So I think 2 years ago when I was still a student at Trinity, if you asked me like, hey, can you build a relationship virtually? I would have thought, no, that's impossible, right? Like I'm an extrovert, and for me, the human interaction face to face is such a big component. But now it's been a year since I started working at Dell, and I can tell you it's very doable. It's very possible for you to still continue to build a relationship or even continue growing it if you've already met that person in face to face, while not necessarily having to see them every day. And so you know, like Mike said, Dell has been adapting to this for a while now, but definitely in the past month or 2 months that we've been working from home, we've been enhancing some of these tips and these lessons that we've learned in the past. And so for this point here on how to build relationships, my first advice would be like, hey, like Mike mentioned, going into meetings with videos, but then think about something outside of those meetings. Like you still want to have fun with your team, not necessarily only talk about, you know, the professional, the work, day-to-day stuff you have to do, but you want to get to know them as well outside of that. And you know, the way to do that, if we were back in the office, would be a happy hour. But you know, in this case, then host a virtual happy hour. You know, you got to be proactive and creative. And you know, some of the things I've seen have sound crazy, but really have worked, and I've seen it. I've been to virtual happy hours with trivia events with the Zoom capabilities of breakout sessions. You know, I had a speed networking event as well with this capability. So you have like 40 people join, and then you know you do speed networking, and then come back to the main session. Another thing I saw was, you know, virtual coffee talks, virtual lunches. This one I didn't join, but I heard from an organization that did a virtual walk. So, you know, they set up a Zoom meeting, and everyone was walking around their neighborhood, but you know, while still talking, and you were kind of walking together virtually. So there's a bunch of other ideas out there that you can really leverage when you know, do an internship or you start working. You know, if you're a senior in this case, the reality is you're probably going to have to face that in the next upcoming months when you graduate. So my biggest advice would be, you know, there's still ways to have fun and build on those relationships. And it's very important that, you know, you keep growing that network after you graduate Trinity. And if it's in this moment of time, then you know, that network is going to have to start off virtual first. So I really do encourage everyone to still focus on building those relationships, even if it's not meeting them in person just yet. So with that, I'll hand it over to the next panelist on the next point.
Perfect. Hi, everyone. My name is Shivali. I'm going to talk about the importance of over-communication today. So all our lives, we've heard about the value of in-person communication, all of the nonverbal cues that we've been evolved to pick up, all of the side conversations that we have about families, about hobbies, etc. All of this becomes part of our work environment. And now that we're working remotely, we need to adapt to be able to still continue building on those while we are in a virtual environment. So we don't really need to be physically together for all of these things to happen. Some of the ways in which you can over communicate with your colleagues and your coworkers and your peers is, number one, be present in the chat windows and video calls. So like Camilla and Mike mentioned earlier, it's, you know, we have all of these tools today to take advantage of. So make sure that you are getting instant feedback, you are communicating with people, and you're not being isolated even further now that we are working remotely. The second one is document more. I would say if you're working on a project, provide constant status updates to all of your stakeholders. Let your professor or your supervisor know exactly where you stand and do it frequently. You can determine what the frequency is based on who you're communicating with. And then the third point is follow up on action items and decisions that need to be made. So if you're working on a group project with somebody, make sure that you're asking everybody where they stand, what their status update is, as well as giving them what you're doing so that you're never at a situation where somebody thinks they're waiting on you while you think you're waiting on somebody else, and then the project is just not being progressed further. And then the final one, which I think is really the most important point, is don't just stick to work-only topics and say hello and good night. What I mean by that is if a meeting ends early, for example, use those extra 5 to 10 minutes to really check in on people. Talk about the things you would talk to them about if you ran into them in the hallway, you know, a sports event that happened or pop culture, things like that, to really build your relationships and communicate with people. Make yourself as present as you can in your coworkers' lives, because really working remotely is just a constant effort to make yourself be as visible as you can to your coworkers and your peers. With that, I think I'm going to pass it along to Lily for the fourth point.
Thanks, Shivali. So the next thing that we're going to talk about is learning how to read a virtual audience. And so obviously it's a lot better to understand that your audience is paying attention and understanding what you're saying. If you're in a video call, you can see that they're paying attention. You can see their reactions for if they're confused or have questions, and if they agree to what you're saying. So if you are in a situation where you can use your video call, I would highly recommend doing that, because it also kind of gives that more personal feel to what you're saying in the conversation itself. But if you're in a situation where you can't use a video, some things that you can do to make the meeting a little bit more personal is be inclusive. So at the beginning of a meeting, if it's a meeting that's with several people, clarify in the beginning that you want to make it an interactive meeting. Make sure that they know that you want to have more conversations and be less one-sided and more everyone is included in the conversation. Let them know that they can ask questions on every topic that you're talking about, or if you want, have them write questions in the chat box so that you can review them later. Some other things that you can do is give people time to respond to what you're saying. So instead of going from topic to topic, you kind of take brief pauses, allow them to fully kind of understand what you're saying, and allow them to ask questions so that they're fully understanding everything that you are trying to get across to them. And then finally, and I think this is also really, really important, is while you're asking everyone else to actively listen and participate in your conversations, make sure that you're doing that as well. I know that right now there's so many distractions going on with phones and with emails, and so you can easily get sidetracked in looking at several different screens and thinking that you're paying attention, but you're really seeing the next task that you have to do after the meeting. So make sure that when you're in a meeting, also practice that active listening. With that, I'm going to pass it on to the next person.
All right, thanks, Lily. My name is Arusa. Great to be with you guys today. Number 5 on our list that our team pulled together here was leverage technology. And this one is really building on a lot of the ones that we've already heard about, heard our other speakers talk about so far. So what does it mean when we say leverage technology? So when we're in this work from home environment, when we hear virtual or remote, we're probably thinking we're using one medium to communicate with each other in a world where we usually use a lot of different mediums, a lot of different ways of communication. But one thing that I've learned in kind of going fully remote is that you really have more than one medium at your disposal. So for example, I kind of have 5 different ways I communicate with my teammates. You know, we've got email, we've got Skype, we've got Zoom, we use Microsoft Teams, and our team has a WhatsApp group. So what this kind of helps us do is have those different types of communications in different platforms, and keeps us organized in our types of communication. Email is something I'm probably using for, you know, the conversations that you had before on email. Skype has become especially beneficial because we don't have those organic conversations in the cube or in the hallway. So when I need something from somebody immediately, I'll leverage that platform to send a quick ping. You've heard a lot about using video. Zoom has been a great resource for that, or whatever your video enabling technology that you're using for your meetings, whether it be for classrooms, for your engagements in other school programming, and outside of that. We've heard a lot of the benefits of using video in the remote times. And then similar to Microsoft Teams, you or your peers might be using some kind of platforms to track your progress, track your projects, track what assignments are coming in and out, and how things are kind of staying on pace and in cadence while everything is online. And then going back to kind of what Camila was talking about, having those relationships and building the morale while we're all sitting in our homes. Our team has a WhatsApp group where, you know, we're just posting memes and quick updates and just try and keep the mood light and having that team level there. And you know, I'll say that our team is really, really global. So people sit all over the world, and because we're all remote now and kind of having to use these tools more than we used to, I'm probably more engaged and have better relationships with people that are overseas than I did before we were all in this environment. So, you know, definitely some positives coming out from there. But I challenge you to think about what are the different platforms you're using for, if we think back to some of the other speakers around over communicating, like how can you plan out how you're going to do that? What checkpoints you're going to set for yourself? Am I going to send an email out to my professor? Am I going to schedule a meeting on Zoom with my team or my project group? Our team earlier today did a virtual karaoke where we all got on Zoom, and there was you know, the music and the words happening. So we're really finding ways to leverage technology to build the environment that we're used to. And one thing to keep in mind at this time is it's probably a lot easier for us to use technology to replace the conversations and the communication that we tend to plan or schedule, but it might be helpful to think about the conversations that might be happening more organically that we don't think about, or the communication that we're not thinking about, or even the tasks that you might want to schedule in advance. So because you don't have those hallway interactions, or because you can't drop by somebody's cube or run into office hours, or whatever that looks like in your world right now, what are the things that you want to be thinking about and have planned to ensure you're getting the support you need and giving the support people need from you. So just a couple more things so that we wanted you guys to think about in that front, and I'll hand it over to the next speaker here.
Thanks, Arusa. So hi, everyone. My name is Paulina. I'm going to be talking about sticking to a schedule. So a bunch of really great points were brought up from previous speakers on collaborating and building up those relationships. But something else that contributes to being a really good team member and being really successful at working remote is also taking care of yourself. So in that front, stick to a schedule. And what I mean by this is, even though we're now working remote and we're in a different environment, stick to a schedule that alleviates the pressure and the stress that we're currently in. So wake up at the same time that you would have done. If you were able to get a workout in and you need that workout to really start your day, continue to do those things. Don't just allow yourself to wake up later or skip breakfast just because you just have to walk a couple steps and turn on the computer and get on a Zoom call, right? So definitely start your day as you would. If that includes a workout, if that includes maybe reading a book before you start your day, do those things. Something that's also really important that Mike touched on is, I am guilty of this myself, sometimes working from home in PJs, but make that extra effort to change into a new set of clothes that really kind of puts your armor on to start your day and to work on different projects with your team members. That's something that I've been doing since we started this, and it actually does put you in that correct headspace to go to work if any means that you possibly can. Another thing is, respect your time for yourself, not in terms of your activities, but also just for simply eating. I know that once you're sucked into your laptop and doing work and responding to emails, time flies by and lunch may have passed by. If you're finding that this is happening to you, set an alarm and say, I'm going to take 30 minutes, 45 minutes for myself to step up, get away from my computer, and have a conversation, possibly with my roommate who's here with me, my family, maybe take the dog out, but take that time in between the day so that you can recharge. And finally, take breaks in between to get up and walk. One of the things that I realized that I stopped doing was drinking water as much as I used to when I was in the office. And I realized that when I would get up to go refill my water bottle, typically I would get a couple steps in. Well, lo and behold, now I'm at home and I have my giant water bottle here and I'm not taking as many steps and I'm not talking to folks and I'm not walking with them to their desks. And that starts to transcend into the daily exercise that you get. So take a couple breaks every so often to even get some steps in, whether you're going to the fridge to grab a snack or coming back. And finally, on the topic of timing, definitely know when to close your laptop and walk away. One of the things that I am also guilty of is saying, oh, well, my laptop's there. I'm going to go to bed. Let me just check my email really quick. No, respect the time that you have for yourself. And if you're with your family, even more, these are the times that you can stress the time that you have with them and have those meaningful conversations at night. Work can wait for the following morning. So I hope these tips help for you, and I will pass it on to Mike on our 7th and final tip.
Actually, so for the 7th tip, I'll actually be speaking on, no, you're totally fine. As far as keeping sanity, Paulina, you had a great call out as well with sticking to a schedule. I think that fits in very well with keeping your sanity. A lot of tips and tricks that I've been kind of taking into practice is just what you do when you first thing when you wake up. You know, you wake up out of bed, your bed's messy, make your bed. Little things like that will actually help you start off on a productive note. I'll never forget my head football coach, Coach Urban, the last 4 years at Trinity, would always tell us first thing in the morning, make your bed. You know, of course, everyone's saying, why? I'm going to get it, you know, I'm going to sleep into the very next day. Why do I need to make it again and again? But it's a matter of having that first thing on your agenda, accomplishing something and adding that sense of pride and that stress release. You never want to work in a dirty environment. And I personally think it helps when you work in a clean environment. You want to take care of your body and stay sanitary, so treat your environment very sanitary as well. And another, you know, a common tip that I use is if you wouldn't treat your office like that, why would you treat your house like that? So if you're really respectful of where you are, you're very mindful of people in your office or your school, you know, then come home and do the same very strategy. You know, to your call out as well, Paulina, when you wake up every morning and you put on a new suit of armor, just something, get some clothes on, you feel like you're ready to switch out of your home environment mode to your it's time to get work done productive mindset. Put your you know, your thinking cap on and get to work. So it feels great having a lot of those skills. It definitely helps with keeping your sanity. You know, get up every now and then if you need to, take a stretch, you know, take a quick walk, do what you need to do to make sure that you can still stay locked in and focused while also keeping everything in a clean environment. So really looking forward to everything. I hope you all enjoy these tips and tricks and are able to use them and benefit from them. And from that, I'll pass it over to Mike here.
Yeah. So again, you know, hopefully these have been helpful for you. And one thing that we would like to just kind of close out, and we've got 4 Trinity interns that are coming into our supply chain program this summer, is that Dell is still doing a internship program this summer. We've switched it over, however, to 100% remote. And we've shortened the timeline to 2 months from beginning of June to the end of July. We're going to have folks work on kind of group-based projects, cohort-based projects, so that they're not just kind of stuck on their own, but they're working with 2 or 3 other people that are working on the same project. We're going to be shipping out laptops, headgear, monitors, backpacks, all the things that folks will need to be productive in the summer. You know, and Arusa talked a little bit about some of the technology that we use, the Zoom, the Skype, the Teams. All of that is going to be a key part of this. We'll be having virtual happy hours, virtual training. I don't know if there's a virtual karaoke scheduled yet, but we'll probably do one with some of the Trinity folks. So get your singing voices ready if you're coming here. And then the final thing is, you know, it's the same kind of paid internship as all of these folks had when they came. So there's no changes to that. I think there's going to be an extra little stipend for Wi-Fi. But we're trying to make that program as valuable as possible with the goal of being able to, you know, not just have 4 interns this summer, but 4 full-time hires the next summer, and keep the hiring train going from Trinity. So with that, I think that concludes our portion of the presentation. I'll turn it back to Miranda and Katie.
Thanks so much, Mike. We really appreciate all of your time. Like we said before, this was really valuable and very timely. And I think it's things that, like you said, our students who are about to graduate are definitely going to be experiencing this, you know, for the next few months at least. So thank you so much for offering to do this and for all of your input. We really appreciate it. I know students love to hear from you. So, and then we just wanted to let you know the people that are tuning in, thanks so much for listening. And if you have any questions or if you need to reach out to Career Services, our email address is careerservices@trinity.edu. And we would be happy to answer any questions that you have. And if you're a student, please check in with us. We are still doing virtual appointments. We would love to help you through all of this interesting time. And we're still very much available for you. And then if you're a parent, encourage your student to check in with us as well. And we would also like to encourage you to contact Aliza Holtzman-Cantu if you're interested in getting into the Parent Council, if you have some expertise or time that you want to share with Trinity students during this time. I think that's all for our session today. Thank you all again for being here as panelists, and thank you for listening.
Great, thanks.
Thank you.